So Jesus says in the gospel that the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. You know, there's times in life when we don't know what's going to happen. And often something unexpected happens in our life that we weren't looking forward to, and it changes everything about our journey. Now, Jesus was born over 2,000 years ago. He died over 2,000 years ago. And people and religions have talked about when Jesus is going to come back and somehow judge the world and judge us. Well, I don't know. I'm not smart enough. I'm not religious enough. But I do know this, and I don't know much. The Son of Man came back a long time ago. Been back for a long time. And of all places, he may come back in the hearts and spirits of ordinary people like you and me. And we may not deserve it, and we may not think we're worthy of it, but how are people ever going to know about the Spirit of Jesus, about the power of kindness, about what Jesus stood for, unless it comes alive in the way we walk and work every day? You can't learn that stuff out of a book. It doesn't come out of thin air. Somehow, some way, people learn about religion and about Jesus by the way they watch other people be kind and good and just. That's the only way you can do it. It's the raw humanity of ordinary people like you and me. That's where the Son of Man has come back. You know, it's easy to lose the childlike wonder of the season because we get stressed and we get pressed for time and we try to cram so much into a short season. But I'm sure all of you have memories or moments when you were reminded of what Christmas is all about. I used to love to spend Christmas with my grandparents in Roseland. You know, the bungalows and the wooden porches, the boiling coffee pot, and Grandma smiling at the kids, all the smells and odors of the season. And I marveled as a kid at how rich my grandparents were. I mean, my God, quarters, singles. And I would ask my parents sometimes, how did Grandma and Grandpa get so rich? Every time you go there, they give you something. And then when they died, I remember my dad had a sit-down with me. And he said, Don, Grandma and Grandpa basically died penniless. They didn't have any money. But I said, Dad, every time, he said, Don, you have to understand, your Grandma and Grandpa did not give out of their abundance. They didn't give you leftovers. They gave you from the very poverty of who they were. They gave it all. They wanted to make sure that the people they loved the most had what little they had. And I think about how God gave it all. I mean, God gave us His Son, and somehow Jesus teaches us how to live every day. He's here. Like Jesus said, you got to be ready. You never know the time or the place or the hour when somebody's going to come out and just remind you of what this season is all about. So speaking of fun and the Son of Man, I talked a little about Boz on Thursday. Boz's sister and he came to a wedding that I did about a month ago. I didn't really talk to him. He was in a wheelchair way back in the corner, very, very weak and looked very, very sick. And after the wedding was over, his sister comes up to me and he says, Pastor Don, we really liked the wedding, and we like the way this place feels. And my brother doesn't have a church, and he's in hospice care, and it won't be long before he leaves this earth. And I'm just wondering if, when the time comes, can we have the service in your church? And I said, yes. And little did I know that it would be Thanksgiving weekend. But you don't know the time nor the hour. Sometimes things just happen. And whenever my dad and I met somebody like Boz, my dad would look at me and say, Don, exactly who in this world is disabled? I mean, he loves unconditionally. He loves the simple things in life. We fret over the stupidest stuff. Sometimes we're the ones that are disabled. We're the ones with special needs because somehow, some way, we don't understand the power and the simplicity of unconditional love. Well, anyway, Boz's sister and his niece dropped by a couple of days before the service because wanted to talk to me about what we were going to have in the service. And they didn't want a whole lot, but they said Boz was a self-proclaimed musician. And he loved to write songs and put them to music and to sing them and record them. And we have this one song that we'd like to play during the service. So we put it in the CD player, and I listened to it. And afterwards they said, well, Pastor Don, what do you think? And I said, that song is so bad, it's beautiful. Well, and then the niece told me, I have a dance studio, and when we do the song, I'm going to have a couple of my students do an interpretive dance in the sanctuary. And she said, is that okay? And I said, well, might as well. If you can play that song, you might as well dance to it. Well, during the service, the niece gave a beautiful eulogy. And after the eulogy, she said, we have a song to share. And we put the song in the CD player, and it was a very peppy tune. In fact, Doug liked it. So anyway, and these two dancers come out, a young man and a young woman, and they were unbelievable. I mean, they were pros. And they somehow made that music come alive. And I tell you, the energy in this sanctuary, when they played that song and they did that dance, it was explosive, and it was beautiful, and there was incredible applause afterwards. I was thinking, you never know the day, you never know the hour, when somehow, some way, you're going to be surprised and inspired by somebody you don't even know. When the Son of Man will return, when a stranger will light up your life, when an ordinary guy can ooze an unordinary spirit. One of the things I wondered about as I walked in the church before the funeral, they made like 60 or 65 CDs of this song. And the older brother during the service said, by the way, we have CDs of the music, and if you want to buy one, you can. They're $10. And as I walked in there, I'm thinking, well, they ain't going to sell all those things for $10. So I was thinking of buying like 25 or 30 of them and passing them out for the children's sermon. Well, after the service, I walk out, and I notice that the basket is empty. And so I went to the sister, and I said, listen, where are the leftover CDs? I'd like to buy some. And she said, we sold out. I said, you sold out? And I said, well, congratulations. And then she handed me an envelope. Yeah, we sold out. This is the money from the CDs. It's for your love bucket. $901. And afterwards, I went into the parking lot, and I said, Christine, we can't take all this money. And she said, yes, you do. And she said, my brother had nothing. He didn't have money because he gave out of his poverty. And I said, what did you just say? I said, my brother gave out of his poverty. And I thought of my dad, and I thought of my grandpa. And then she said, my brother said this to us in his own clumsy way. He said, when it comes to giving, always play it forward. Now, I'm not sure if that's in the Bible, but if it's not, it ought to be. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.